Have you ever really seen a lazy person? I mean, really think about it because I've been racking my brain and I don't think I have. I've seen other people label other people as lazy, but I don't think I've ever really seen a lazy person. What I have seen, and I see almost every day, is people terrified of being seen as lazy or perceived as lazy, terrified to rest. And when they absolutely have to, they feel guilty or ashamed that they're doing it. I've got my kappa, and this is where we have conversations about how to settle the mind into the center of your being, the heart. And we do this with yoga science, and with Ayurveda, and also at times the theory and the metaphysics of Chinese medicine. So welcome to this channel. I'm so glad you're here. Take the time to subscribe, hit that button, and I can't wait to go on this adventure of looking at how this perpetuation of calling ourselves or calling others lazy has led us to the state that we're in mentally. Lazy has been used to shame us into working, and it's created this internal bully that if we are resting, if we are processing, then potentially we're being lazy. And that could be like one of the worst things that you could ever be, is useless and wasting your time and wasting resources. And that is one of our biggest fears, right? To waste time. So I want to talk about how this has created extreme anxiety and stress. And as we know, we're in that chronic overload and overwhelm as a species, really. And we're seeing the mental health effects of that. So let's go into the science first, and let's go into the nervous system. When we've experienced extreme trauma, or even chronic childhood trauma, chronic stress, then cortisol is constantly pumping through, and it's that low grade or maybe high grade constant cortisol release. And this is happening in the brain with the hypothalamus, then to the pituitary gland, which goes and communicates to the adrenals to pump. And there's a cost to this, and this cost in science, they call it the allostasis. And think of this as a bucket, and the more that this bucket gets filled then and overspills, the more inflammation you're going to have. So you only have a bucket that you can hold of this cortisol, and then as the bucket fills and spills out, you're going to start to have a lot of problems, inflammation problems, which is going to cause other diseases. That's one way to look at it with the science. So at some point, your body is just going to have to stop, and that will feel like, what is going on? I can't do what I used to be able to do. And sometimes we're going to call it aging, and it's like this deterioration of the body from the stress and from that's why it's traumatic stress disorder, from that ongoing stress. If we look at it from an Ayurvedic perspective, Ayurveda talks about this term ojas, and ojas is what lubricates and nourishes the parts of our body, and that's everything from the joints to the organs, and it helps keep us really refreshed and nourished. One of the leading causes for aging, according to Ayurveda, is that drying out, and that leaves room, the dryness, for the inflammation. And so when the cortisol comes, it's doing that. It's eroding the ojas, this very important lubricant tissue that nourishes and fortifies our bigger organs and tissues. Less ojas, more air, more space, which is vata energy, if you know the doshas, but let's just say it's more air, more space. It's dry, and there's more space, for example, in the joints. It's not filled with that liquid and with that sustenance. So it's a bit more empty. And so this is also, I talked about it in the last episode as well. It means that the neurons are a bit quicker, or a little bit more jumpy. All of those things are running fast. When we start to drain that ojas nourishing liquid, and think of it almost like synovial fluid. That's how I like to think of it, but it's different than that even. But this kind of viscous coating that strengthens and protects our tissues, that we start to drain that and become much more airy, much more spacey. That means that we get all of those vata tendencies, which is anxiety, starts to rise in the mind, as well as insomnia, and again, some of those other things I talked about in the last episode, tremors, and that inability to be still, that inability to rest. And then at some point, it just drops you into the kapha, but you still are depleted with the, it kind of drops you into the tamas because you can't move anymore, but you're still in the high vata. So this is what I see so much with chronic fatigue, is this I can't move, kind of tamastic, almost presenting kapha state, but the mind is runs into extreme anxiety and insomnia. So exhaustion has just completely made everything go haywire. So you're going extreme tamas, extreme rajas. This is developed through rest, through nourishment, and receiving like energy. And this replenishes this, which is not, again, celebrated or seen as a good thing in our culture. In fact, again, it's seen as being lazy if you take the time to rest. Okay. In Ayurveda, one of the issues too is the shame with it we've been talking about. So it's not a sign that you've failed if you get to that point even. Like one of the ones they would say, if the candle has burnt out and you're needing that new candle or new way of burning, then you wouldn't blame the candle, right? You would just seek that new way. Let's move into a little bit of the Chinese medicine theory. And again, I use meridians in yoga. That is my connection to it. And I like to always frame and create that boundary or scope that I'm working with. But the Chinese medicine see the essence of our energy in the kidneys, and it's called the jing. And it's funny because yoga sees the essence, or one of the translations of the Svadhisthana chakra is essence, which is the water, and kidneys is water. So this is, again, coming from the water element, which is part of ojas as well. So this liquid, this nourishing, viscous tissue. But going back to TCM, the jing, when this is our essence, our essential energy, when we overwork or we're overstressed, it's said that this, again, is depleted or dried out. So it has the same kind of theory. So you might get more cold if you have deficient jing. You have this term of wired but tired. So you're, again, switched on, but really, really depleted. I had it told to me once this way, is that you have, coming back to a candle analogy or candle metaphor, we have two candles that were given, and one is for the day and one is for our life. And if we burn the day candle, which I think is also referring to if we're burning our ability for that bucket to hold the stress and the cortisol, to, that bucket of the allostasis that science is talking about, if we overflow that, then we're going to have to go to a life bucket, and we're going to have to pull to the resources of our life. And that's shortening our life. We see that, like, stress can shorten our life, right? So we have a day light and we have a life light. And if you're spending too much of that daylight, then it's going to start to take from your life. We can all feel the truth of that. And so what it's asking us to do is that we're going to need to relegate the stress of the day and start to transform the stress that we might still be holding from the past. Fear is one of the big things that can deplete the kidney qing and the kidney qi or qi. And this happens with trauma. We've got this frightening thing that has happened that
makes us feel very real, like we're going to die. And it depletes that essence, that energy. Theory would often ask, not are you working enough, but are you nourishing yourself enough? Are you nourishing yourself enough? Where are you nourishing yourself? So I want to go back, because I work with this time and time again, to the initial premise of this episode, which is that I think underneath this fear of to be lazy is the fear of wasting your life or being seen as a useless person. There's probably other kind of angles to it, but I think that's one of the big things. And to obviously not be in held in esteem by your loved ones is really important as well.
One of the most freeing yoga teachings for me was in the Gita, chapter 6, where it's, you know, nature, God, however you want to see it, is speaking to this warrior about, if you are conscious, if you are practicing, if you are waking up and doing your part, and doing your part might be nourishing yourself or resting consciously, if you're doing this consciously, there is no way that you can waste your life. There is no way you can waste your life. The name of the game is to be conscious. But because the fear becomes so strong, the fear of the shame and not being loved if we are lazy, we go into overdrive and we actually steal from our own life. We steal our lives. We take them and we don't receive them. We take that energy away from ourselves. And so this is the call to slow down, to take a moment, and also to start to strip away the bully, the shame, or the driver of uh, that lazy label, because it's going to drive and dry out your essence, your energy, versus coming from a replenished and joyous place of serving your communities, serving your families, serving yourself, and a very restful place of doing that. Depending on the kind of exhaustion and the elemental makeup of the person, again, it goes back to some same advice that I gave in the last episode when you can't cry because of overstimulation and numbness, which is also kind of uh, ironic dual system that happens. This is what happens with kind of chronic fatigue, where the body is fatiguing but the mind is racing. There's a really ironic combination that's happening elementally. Both kapha and uh, the vata is high, and so we eventually want to get to pratyahara, and we want to get, this is an inward practice. Yoga nidra is one of the best pratyahara practices, but what the deprivation tanks or float tanks are all about as well, right? Is just tuning inward. And eventually that's where we want to go, and we're meeting consciously again those states of real slow brainwaves of relaxation, but also targeting and focusing our awareness in that state of mind. And eventually we want to get there, but for some people it could take rhythmic movement, again, like asana, and breath, to be able to still to that point and be comfortable going into a tank, or be comfortable lying down, not just comfortable, but being able to be still and not as startled or trembling or having the tremors. There is a lot of resources that show that whether it's legs up the wall for a long period of time or yoga nidra, it's going to give the effect of having sleep. But there's something else that's happening if we're doing it consciously. We're training ourselves in the conscious mind how to receive and be awake while resting. Okay, let's recap a little bit. Science calls it allostatic recovery, and we're trying to recover from all that cortisol. and Ayurveda calls it rebuilding the ojas. The TCM call it tonifying our kidney chi or ki. And then the yogis talk about coming back and to yoga nidra practice, practicing being restfully conscious. Okay? And that this will start to allow us to give from a really nourished, joyous place rather than driving our doing and our duty to serve from a chronic, stressed, and shameful place of the laziness. So, this is a shift from shame to acknowledgement, from empty, depleted, and dry to full, luscious, and really receiving. This is trauma transformation. It's landed for you today, or you think someone could really use this message today. You are not lazy because you have chronic fatigue. You are not lazy because you can't seem to get out of bed. There might be other things happening. And I've seen it, it doesn't matter what your age is either, because I've seen it in younger folks that have gone through extreme trauma. So it's just about how many times you've had to go into that candle for just to get through the day, that life energy just to get through the day. I have two invitations. One, subscribe if you haven't already. This is a very small channel that I'm getting up and running, and every person that subscribes really matters and tells YouTube to keep pushing some of this material out to the people that need it. Number two, I have a yoga nidra for you. Subscribing, and you get that free recording. Experience a yoga nidra in my method. It's a shortened version of the Heartmind Yoga Nidra method. Especially if you feel like some of these things resonated for you today, you need it. So it's free. It's your medicine. I can't thank you enough. Travel well. Enjoy your yoga. Enjoy your prana. Enjoy your life. Namaste.